Good morning. I want to give my weather report for the upcoming lunar month from about July 14th to August 12th. And I'm going to do things a little differently than I've been doing them in the past. Rather than covering everything under the sun, I am going to simply try and hit the highlights and finish this report in under 30 minutes, so it will be easier to listen to. Okay, so let me see if I can share my screen and we can begin. All right, here we go. This always takes a minute because I have to get rid of some things so I can see what I'm doing. Just about there. And we're ready. So this is the astrological weather report for the lunar month, July 14th through August 12th. Okay, first a quick review of the last lunar month, which began on June 14th. And I felt that first week was going to be rather calm or quieter for the most part because we didn't really have any major outer planetary aspects occurring. And this was the week when both America and Iran were trying to behave themselves and arrange a ceasefire and begin negotiations. But later on, with Jupiter square Chiron and Mars conjunct Uranus, I thought things would start to fall apart with the ceasefire, and that some other unexpected events would happen in the world. And actually, during this period, uh, during this part in the last week of June, it was the war between Ukraine and Russia that first began to intensify, with both sides increasing their attacks on the other. And then we also had during this period several major earthquakes, volcano eruptions, heat waves in America and in Europe, and the El Nino in the Pacific Ocean really began to intensify during this period. Of course, as we got into July, the ceasefire between America and Iran began to fall apart completely, and they were trading attacks on one another. Now, at the same time, we have this minor grand trine between Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto starting to get very strong again. It first appeared in summer of 2025 and has been there kind of off and on, but this summer it really gets strong once more, and that is bringing a more transcendent and harmonious energy into the world. But we also have this other stuff going on. And as I say, if you stub your toe, the other toes may feel great, but it's the toe that you stub, the toe that you hurt, that tends to get all the attention. So we do have some pain in the world right now, and it is getting a lot of attention despite these harmonious aspects that are also forming. Now, let's take a quick look at the world. The main thing coming up is what I call the Great Harmony on July 21st, 2026. This is the date that the late great mundane astrologer Andre Barbeau thought would be the most harmonious day of the century because we have so many trines and sextiles that are exact to the degree involving the outer planets. And this day is also the day of the first quarter moon, which is a time when there's a little extra tension in the air. And so this chart is set up on July 21st for the time of the first quarter moon in Scottsdale, Arizona, where I live. And in this chart, you can see you have Pluto at 4 degrees Aquarius, Neptune at 4 degrees Aries, Uranus at 4 degrees Gemini, Jupiter at 4 degrees Leo. But then you also have Chiron, the lunar nodal axis, and the moon making what we call a mystic rectangle. This has a lot of harmony in it, sextiles and trines, but also oppositions, so it's a little bit more dynamic. It's energized to get some things done. And we see a couple of very clearly defined minor grand trines here between Uranus, Neptune, Pluto, and Jupiter, Uranus, and Neptune. So there's a lot of harmony. And the midpoint of what many call this Barbeau basket, some call it the Barbeau cradle, the midpoint is going to be at 4+ degrees of Taurus. That's halfway in between 4+ degrees of Aquarius and 4+ degrees of Leo. And I've put here some Sabian symbols. I find the Sabian symbols always interesting and intriguing. I don't have statistical evidence that they work. I'm not sure if I could evaluate them statistically, certainly not very easily, but they're always intriguing. And the Sabian symbol for 4+ degrees of Taurus, that's actually in the 5th degree of Taurus, it says, a widow at an open grave, reorientation. And this really suggests something that is passing away and something new that is coming in. And that seems very likely this year. And we also have Chiron, somewhat close to that in the 1st degree of Taurus. And the Sabian symbol for that is a clear mountain stream, resourcefulness. So people may be drinking from their own well, going to their own inner resources to help them cope with the things that are going on. Now, in this chart, you have a lot of 6 harmonic angles. The root 6 harmonic angle is the sextile. That's 360 degrees divided by 6. But trines are also 6 harmonic angles. They're just 2 times that root harmonic angle of 60 degrees. So with so many 6 harmonic angles in here, this suggests to me that the 6 harmonic of this chart will be activated. And that's what I have here. And this is extraordinarily interesting. We have Jupiter, Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto all in a very tight conjunction in Aries in the 6 harmonic chart. And it's being supported by a very strong sextile from Saturn in Gemini. So this suggests to me that people may turn inward in order to access these higher energies. And a lot of people may turn away, for instance, from organized religion toward individual spirituality. And careful, discriminating thinking can help them evaluate the path that they should take. This will be very supportive for integrating and expressing these more transcendent energies. But there's a few other things going on in this chart too. We have Mars in opposition to Mercury and square Chiron, and I think that Mercury will be drawn into a square with Chiron too, even though it's rather wide. And this suggests wounding through aggression. So we have kind of these 2 paths here that people can choose. They can take the path of individual spirituality and transcendence, being guided by rational thought, or they can engage in warlike activities and wound others. And I certainly hope that more people choose the former path instead of the latter path. We also have in this 6 harmonic chart, we'll have Sun in Pisces exactly opposite Moon in Virgo. And this suggests people making more mystical, meditative connections with the universe, with their environment, and then using the wisdom they glean to serve others and to help assist others. So, this is my summary of it all. With all of these planets together in Aries, this is a time for individual spirituality. With this strong sextile from Saturn, meditation, inner discipline, and controlling one's mind will assist progress. With Sun in Pisces opposite Moon in Virgo, individuals connected to the One will provide service to the many. And with Mars opposite Mercury and square Chiron, disagreements with those in power and wounding of others may continue, unfortunately. Now let's take a look at America. And here's an interesting thing. On June 21st, there was a progressed new moon in this July 2nd, 1776 chart that I use for America. Many people may use July 4th, but July 2nd was the actual date of the passage by the Continental Congress of the Declaration of Independence. So this is when we really decided to break away from England. And in this progressed chart, we have Sun and Moon making a very strong square to natal Mars. Now, this progressed lunation cycle lasts about 29 years, so this is starting it out in a very aggressive manner. And actually, progressed Sun has been square natal Mars all year long, which allowed me to predict that there was going to be an increased likelihood for conflict or war either at home or abroad, and actually we have seen both. We have seen the attacks by ICE on people within the country, and of course now the war abroad with Iran, and also attacks on boats coming from Venezuela and stuff like that. Okay, now if we look at the transits on July 21st to this USA chart, we see something that is actually going to be present in all the July 1776 charts that astrologers might use for America. Transiting Saturn is opposite natal Saturn very, very strongly. And it's going to linger for 2 months, July and August. And this allowed me, at least 7 months ago, to be able to say that America was going to be under a dark cloud for the months of July and August. I didn't know what would be, but at this point in time, it looks like the war with Iran is that dark cloud, which is driving up prices and all sorts of stuff in America. Inflation is going up. We do have transiting Chiron, though, making a sextile to natal Venus, and that will help release some tensions. This can bring some healing as people change their attitudes and values. Okay, now here you can see the transits for July and August, and we have Saturn opposite natal Saturn on the 23rd. It's going to turn retrograde on the 26th of July and then be directly opposite natal Saturn again on the 29th. The sextile from Chiron to Venus, it weakens a bit during this period, but then I believe that Chiron will turn retrograde on August 3rd. It will start to gain in strength again. But then we also have these ominous aspects from Mars. We have Mars, transiting Mars, conjunct natal Mars. That's going to be exact on the 27th of July. So this is pretty strong during the last week or week and a half of July. And we have just passed the peak of transiting Mars conjunct Uranus in the USA chart. And whenever anything pokes at Uranus, America has a tendency to become involved with war or conflict. That was the case in the American Civil War, or let's see, Revolutionary War, Civil War, World War II and the Manhattan Project, and we're going to have another Uranus return soon, which is going to be a major poking. That, I believe, happens in 2027. But this is stirring the pot, certainly. And then August, we'll have Mars square ascendant and conjunct midheaven. Actually, for this USA chart, we can't be all that certain about the exact degree of the ascendant and midheaven, so I will watch this, but take it with a grain of salt. Now, if we take a look at Trump, he has his natal Chiron at 14 plus degrees of Aries, and Saturn is going to remain pretty much at 14 plus degrees of Aries throughout July and August. So he's going to be experiencing a lot of wounding at this time, though he is going to get a lifeline from transing Chiron making a trine to his ascendant, which will bring about some much needed support and healing and uh, relief from this tension. But this is the headline I saw just the other day on July 11th. It said Trump's embarrassingly bad week, a ceasefire collapse, Air Force One concerns, and a court defeat. So there is a lot of political wounding that Trump is experiencing right now, as predicted, and as I foresaw at least seven months ago. And here you can see the transits, the main transits for Chiron and Saturn in July and August. These really persist throughout those 2 months quite strongly. Things will tend to probably peak for Trump in late July. Transing Saturn will turn retrograde on July 6th, since opposition to Trump's natal Chiron will start separating. Well, let's see, actually, it's going to be exact again on the 29th, and then it really starts separating. Transing Chiron will turn retrograde on August 3rd, and its trine to Trump's ascendant will become applying again. So as we go throughout August, the opposition to Chiron from Saturn will lessen somewhat. The trine from transing Chiron to his ascendant will increase somewhat, and that will certainly be to his benefit. But Vance's chart during this period is very interesting. If we look at how the Great Harmony will affect Vice President J.D. Vance, look at this. Transiting Uranus is going to be exactly conjunct to the degree, his north node in his 10th house. This suggests that there may be some sudden elevation in status. And this gets support from a sextile from Jupiter at 4 plus degrees of Leo and Neptune at 4 plus degrees of Aries and Pluto at 4 plus degrees of Aquarius, making a trine to his north node in the 10th house. Furthermore, if we look at his progressed chart for this year, his progressed sun and ascendant are making a trine to his natal midheaven, and we've got a very good birth time for J.D. Vance, and his progressed midheaven is trine his natal moon. And we've already seen more involvement of J.D. Vance in, for instance, the negotiations with Iran. He already seems to be taking a little bit more prominent role. And one has to wonder, is he going to advance maybe even all the way to the presidency? Trump's star is falling at this point, but J.D. Vance's is rising. Well, even if Trump remains as president, uh, things will still happen to elevate Vance's status and importance within the administration, even if we don't see it publicly all that much. Now, let's take a quick look at Iran. The Great Harmony, July 21st, 2026 for Iran. Well, for Iran, it's going to be anything and everything but Great Harmony. Transiting Chiron, I'm using, by the way, some slightly wider orbs I usually do so I can catch everything. And transing Chiron is going to square natal Jupiter. At the same time, transing Jupiter is going to square natal Chiron. So this really magnifies the tension between Jupiter and Chiron, which by itself usually expands the wounding. And then we have transing Pluto, making a square to natal Chiron, an opposition to natal Jupiter, and Mars is going to be square the lunar nodal axis. So this lunar month carries the potential for an awful lot of wounding, expanded wounding, and a lot of aggression. Now, there are a couple of good trines. Transing Saturn is going to have an enduring trine with natal moon. That will be strong throughout the lunar month. But in this case, I think this is just going to strengthen Iran's resolve to endure whatever is thrown at them and just stay the course, even if it's not a very good course. And transing Mars is trine natal Mars. Remember that good aspects don't always mean good results, they simply mean easy results. In this case, it will be easy for Iran to engage in aggressive activities, and that can ultimately spell its doom. And here you can see how those transits will endure throughout this lunar month for Iran. Okay, now here's my summary of everything. This year has been extraordinary. The Saturn-Neptune conjunction in the first degree of Aries on February 20th and the Great Harmony on July 21st are two extremely rare events that are changing the world this year. The old world order is going away. Something new is coming about. The harmonious aspects will help birth this new world, but as with many births, it looks like it's going to be painful. The Saturn-Neptune conjunction dissolved the old world order, and we're still searching for the new status quo. The Great Harmony on July 21st may signal the start of an ongoing focus on individual spirituality that will be supported by mental discipline. Outwardly, though, conflicts with others and with those in power may continue. However, the enlightened will engage in service to others. America will reap what is sown and will likely experience many shortages and frustrations this summer. However, changes in attitudes can bring healing. Trump will experience a variety of difficulties throughout the summer, but they may peak on August 3rd when Chiron turns retrograde and gets closer to a trine with his ascendant. Still, it's seriously possible that he may no longer be president by the end of the summer. He could be removed by the 25th Amendment. He could die in office. He's 80 years old right now. He could be so obviously senile, suffering from dementia, that the 25th Amendment could be invoked. All sorts of things could happen. But as Trump's star falls, J.D. Vance's will be rising, and thus one has to wonder if he will ascend all the way to the presidency, or will he rise in some other way this summer? As for Iran, it's got problems. Summary, these are interesting times. That is the allegedly old Chinese curse. May you live in interesting times, and we certainly do. And that is it. So let me stop sharing my screen. And I'm back. So this is my new abbreviated format. I hope it works well for you. I'm focusing just on the most important things this lunar month and how people and countries will be affected. And this allows you to go get through it all much more quickly. So I hope you enjoyed that. I hope you join me again. But for now, I'll just say so long and be well.